It has happened once again. You have reached the Real Dirt Podcast with Chip Baker, the semi-regular podcast where we speak of cannabis, hemp, and all things ganja. Welcome again, my friends. I really enjoy this podcast. I talk to so many people all over the country and all over the world, and I appreciate you guys listening to me. Man, I'll tell you, it's one of the coolest things I've ever done. I've met so many cool people through this podcast. The genuine friendship people have brought me over this podcast has been pretty incredible. And so I want to thank all of you who listen to me. And, we were looking at some of the stats the other day, and this type of stuff's kind of hard to read and put together. But, man, we got like 30,000 people may download this episode. And that number is really incredible to me because as you're listening to this, you're one of maybe 30,000 people in the country that are interested in cannabis and ganja and hemp. And, I know there's many millions more people that are talking about it and many millions more people that are thinking about it. But you guys really are the core group of this industry. We haven't been able to advertise to get this podcast to work. And so like a podcast like, I don't know, let's just pick some random stuff like Serial. That's or This American Life, or those are major podcasts, which I love. They advertise. They have advertising dollars. We can't do that. Government won't let us. Facebook won't let us. It's just really hard to advertise. But that doesn't matter to us because we really just want to speak to ganja people and hemp people. And so we have marketed this podcast to you via trade shows, word of mouth, a really large active Facebook and social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, and that's how we've gotten all of you guys here, more than likely. Maybe there's some other way. But word of mouth, hey man, have you heard this podcast, Real Dirt, Chip Baker? Oh, dude, totally heard that podcast. That type of stuff. Just Facebook engagements and Instagram engagements. We have a fairly large Instagram following between Cultivate Colorado, Growers, Soil, the Real Dirt Podcast. That cumulatively, it's like, 60,000 people or something somehow want to know what we have to say. So you're one of a few. There's not that many cannabis licenses in the U.S. And chances are, if you're listening to this, you either own a cannabis license, hey y'all, or you work for a cannabis company, Grow Joes and Grow Janes out there, bud tenders, accountants, lawyers, what have you, or you want to be in the cannabis industry. Y'all are hardcore. Y'all a hardcore group, man. I just want to give it up to you because it really is all growers, all business people, all weed enthusiasts that are listening to the Real Dirt Podcast. And if I can ask all of you to just do one thing, because I really want to spread the word. I want to spread the word about cannabis. I want to spread the word about hemp and ganja and how it's changing the world. And it's been changing the world for years, but we really are on this like precipice of incredible international change with cannabis. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it, but no one can see the future. I want to ask you guys, please get a friend that hasn't listened to the podcast and ask people if they listen to podcasts and recommend the Real Dirt Podcast. The more people we interact, the better we get. We're a team here, man. We really are. You guys, I'm just the voice here. The people I have on the show, they're the voice. They're the people that, decided for some reason that they wanted to be involved in ganja, and I happen to be friends with them or heard their story, and we got them on here. We're just the voice, and you guys really are the action. So please, if you haven't subscribed to the Real Dirt Podcast on iTunes, please do. If you haven't joined us on Instagram or Facebook, the Real Dirt Podcast, please do. We'd love to have you there. We'd love your interaction. Say what's up. I'm on there all the time. I'm on the forklift picking up soil. I'm on the Instagram. I'm in a garden. It looks really fucking cool. I take a picture of that. I'm on the Instagram. So sometimes when you guys are commenting on our Instagram page, I'll actually be in some of the largest gardens in the world. I'll be in the presence of some of the smartest cannabis brains in the world, and or maybe even just the highest quality or the coolest people, man. I mean, 100%. So just know you guys are part of this tribe. We're the Ganja Tribe, the Real Dirt Podcast. Thanks for listening and enjoy this next episode of The Real Dirt. Hey, this is Chip from The Real Dirt. Oh, I am coming to you live from Oklahoma City, OKC, as we like to call it. That's right. Feels like Mexico today. It's hot and humid. Such a nice afternoon. This evening has been very pleasant. We've moved down here several months ago to establish a bunch of other businesses that we have. Another Cultivate Colorado. We're having a Cultivate Oklahoma now. We are in 2 different states and servicing people all over. So, yeah, I'm sorry I haven't had the most regular episodes, but that's what I've been doing. We've been opening up our newest grow store in Oklahoma. If you haven't heard, Oklahoma is pretty awesome. I know there's lots of stereotypes about this place, but let me tell you, coolest people, nicest people. We've only run into a handful of jackass. And, that just happens. You run into some jackasses here. But, man, we have joined, some incredible groups. We went to a women's cannabis event this past weekend. Man, it was this lakeside event. There was maybe, it was small, maybe 100 people or something were there. I met some really cool people that do cannabis and comedy. There was a classroom there where they were educating people on how to make their own medicinal products and how to grow cannabis, how to grow their own personal cannabis. It was really great, man. I met some great people, some transplants from all over, some local Oklahomians. Man, cannabis events are happening all the time here. It's everything's so brand new. And, other states that have had previous cannabis culture, there was this darkness and hiddenness that accompanied cannabis when it was illegal. In Oklahoma, I just don't really see it. I mean, I know there was some sort of cannabis cultivation here, but being in the hydroponic industry, as we call it, because, I own grow stores, cultivatecolorado.com, cultivateokc.com now. If you need any grow gear, grow needs, lights, soil, whatever, just ring us up there. Get a commercial account, free delivery all over. Just a little plug. Anyway, so I own the stores, and I've been involved in this industry for years. Make potting soil, made all kinds of stuff, lights, fertilizer, nutrients. I really have a pulse on who's buying, who's selling, what's really going on. And man, Oklahoma has blown up as far as sales in the hydro industry. There are dozens of shops that have opened up here. If you're late to the party, I don't know if I'd show up here. For everybody else, it has, definitely increased the volumes of sales here. There was a previous store, there was a solo store here. I think they're called Oklahoma Organic Garden Supply or OKC Organics. Maybe that's what it is. They're a longtime local store. They seem like cool people. I've stopped in their store. I've checked them out. Their parking lot's packed. But they used to be the only game in town. Now they're not. There's a dozen more stores. Everybody's doing good business. So, it's not like it's flooded yet. And, it may flood. The whole thing may happen. But that's what happened in Colorado anyway. So many stores opened up that, it just kind of flooded out the market for most people. We cultivate, though. We got a superior staff and supply superior knowledge on how to grow it up, man. So if you ever got a question, just walk into one of our shops, give us a call and ask for Jacob or Jimmy or Isaac. Man, any of those guys can help you out, and numerous others. All of our employees there are just incredible, totally stellar. If you got a question, just ask. But I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here. So we've moved to Oklahoma to open up some grow stores. We've received a little bit of confrontation over the whole outsiders thing, but not really. Most people have just been really ultra cool to us. We've met some really great people. My potting soil company, Grower Soil, we started up at DC here, started distributing product down here, have met growers and grow stores from all over the state, and man, all type, ganja attracts all types of people. That's one of the things I really love about it. The cultural, anthropological side of it is just incredible to me. And we have met just all kinds of people, wanting growers, soilless products. It's a high porosity mix. It's made from peat, cocoa, and perlite. Holds a little bit more moisture than, say, your standard high porosity mix. But that's better for you. It's better for the plant. It's easier to water. And you still retain all of the air filled porosity and cation exchange rate, nutrient exchange rate with it. But people from all walks of life are buying this soil, and it's really cool. Last week I loaded up some people. They were ranchers. They had ranch trucks. Cattle, they had cattle feeders in the back of the truck, and we wedged some soil between the cattle feeders, and they had ganja growing plans. And I've met engineers that we've loaded pallets of soil up into their small little Toyota FJs. You know who you are. That's right. We've talked to real estate agents out there. Because we're of course we don't want to buy a home down here, and got a great real estate agent that we met through the cannabis community. It's been really cool, man. Things about Oklahoma. Oklahoma, small town USA, so to speak. It is not California. It is not, Oregon, Washington. It's not Las Vegas. It's not Denver. Even though Colorado is just right there. It's a far more southern and rural community, even here in Oklahoma City. Most of Oklahoma City is ag land, so I've been told. It's a really huge city, 600 square miles or something like that, and 600,000 people here. Don't quote me on any of those stats, you Oklahomians that really know what these stats are. You can absolutely post on our page, Facebook page, that I was wrong about these, but still, it's really big. But the cannabis scene is new, man. So it's not that side of it's not so big. Now, I know there's some big rooms out there. We're selling big lights and big soil to big grows out there. Lots of rock wool, lots of nutrients, lots of soil, big lights, 200-300 lights. We had a customer call yesterday at 70,000 square feet and had some trim pros and wanted some trim pros and whatnot. And there's some big people out here, but most of the people here got 200 to 400 amps of power to grow inside. Now, let's break that down. So 200 amps, that's going to roughly get you 12,000 watts, no matter how you do it, LEDs, 315s, or 1,000 watts. Down here, you're going to need about a 6-ton AC. Maybe you could get away with a little bit less. That's where most of your energy consumption is going to go. You're going to have some fans and some dehumidifiers too. You got to have that dehumidifier. Here, let's break down a typical 200 amp grow room. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. One is, you can just have one room of 12,000 watts. That 12,000 watts can be cooled by 6 tons of AC. The way we get that math is we take 12 and multiply it times 0.5, because it's 0.5 tons per light in order to cool the light down. Now, this means that you have really good insulation. You have spray foam insulation, cement walls. If you don't have that, then you should do 0.75 instead of 0.5. If you're out in the plains, if you're someplace really sunny, then just bust up your AC equation a little bit. So 12,000 watts, 6 tons. Now you can put these watts in 315s, right? And you can get, what is that crazy math? All right, that crazy math is like 38 315s, which you would crush it with 38 315s on 12,000 watts instead of 12,000 watts. If you don't know about 315s, check them out. Love that Sunlight 315 for sure. You could also do it another way. You could do it with 600 watts. And let's see what that math is. You could have 2,600 watts in there. So Doesn't matter. It's all the same AC. And my point to this whole thing is those are really small grow rooms. You can grow some great weed in those 200 amp grow rooms. Now, they're not the biggest grow rooms in the world, but who cares? You can grow great weed in those small rooms. You got room to slow up. You got stuff to do. You can put it together. Like, it's nice, man. You got twice that size, 400 amps, because that's the other common size, 200 amps, 400 amps. 600 amps. Most people have 200 and 400 amps here in Oklahoma right now. They're licenses are easy to get, so people have just gotten a license for whatever space. And there's people with huge build outs too, don't get me wrong. But so my point is with that 200 amps, man, you can, have 12,000 watts, or you can put it on the flip, which means, you have 12,000 watts on flower for a 12-hour period a day, say 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., you have another 12,000 watts in another room on flower every day. So, that's how you maximize your, your wattage there. And you just, that way you get 24,000 watts running over a 24-hour period of time, which is a great way to do it. Flip it, man. Flip it. And with the 400 amp service, you get to do about the same thing. You have to have more AC, you have more lights, and there's efficient ways to like crank those numbers, but it doesn't matter if you're using LEDs or 315s. Like, both of those are really effective and really efficient. Watt per square foot. The 1,000 watt double ended still are the most effective per watt per unit measurement of heat to light a room. So if you don't believe me, then just go look at the math. Ganja growing is all about the math. It is absolutely there. No reason not to use LEDs if you want to. I mean, LEDs and 315s are expensive. So double-ended thousands are just so cheap, but just as effective, even more so in many circumstances. So you're going to have all these great small rooms growing small amounts of ganja. And I really believe that Oklahoma is going to crush it. Now, there's a bunch of farmers out there that have gotten licenses that are going to grow this stuff in the fields, that have gotten dubious seeds and auto flowers and dubious clones. And nobody knows what's going to go on this year because nobody's grown weed outside in Oklahoma ever, really. Not like this. I mean, in the shadows and this or that, but of course, there's some people out there that have been doing it, but not the acres of ganja that's going to go on here. Chip predicts that Oklahoma City specifically is going to become one of the ganja capitals of the country, at least for a little while. The extraction that's going to start to happen here, because there's all this biomass, is going to be pretty incredible. So many large companies are moving here because of the opportunities to take their current technology they developed in other countries like Colorado or California or Washington or Oregon or Nevada. They were able to take those expensive technologies that they've put just tons of resources in and bring them into Oklahoma. Man, it's going to change things. It is absolutely, going to make Oklahoma a hot spot. And we already feel it. I said it earlier today, and I'm a really open-minded dude for sure, and full of contradictions. That's what happens when you're open-minded, right? But man, Oklahoma City could be like very Amsterdam-like easily. The lax attitude over business and laws. They just want one simple registration form. It's a pro-business state, for good or for bad. It's definitely a diamond in the rough, man. That's what I'm going to say. And man, we're gonna work hard to educate people. We're gonna work hard to help people build their grow rooms. If we're gonna have seminars, I mean, I'm really stoked to be down here. I feel like I have this great opportunity to pass on this legacy of knowledge that we have developed through, my own personal journey, through Cultivate Garden Supply, through growers potting soil. It's going to blossom, man. It's going to blossom just like those flowers we're growing in our basements. Boom. So tell me about Oklahoma weed, all my friends say. Because, man, I'll tell you, I have some of the headiest friends in the world. Oh, my God. I got some heady friends. They want to know what the weed's like here. And, of course, they all think they have the best weed. They grow the best weed. And some of them do. Some of them do. Like my buddy over there, Crednick Jedley at Talking Tree Farms up in Humboldt. Man, he grows some pretty dank weed. Some of my other friends over at like Terrapin Station there in Colorado. Wow, man, they do a really good job. And, places like Wolfpack over there in Colorado and Denver, like they curate, lots of fine ganja. And my boys Bloom down there in Pueblo. Man, they're all going great weed. And, all my friends within those organizations are there. They're like, so what's the weed like in Oklahoma? Here's what the weed's like in Oklahoma. There's many dispensaries in town. They're medical dispensaries. Cannabis costs between $40 and $55 an eighth. We're doing extreme market research here, going to different dispensaries to buy, medical cannabis. Eighths, $40 to $55. Most of it, now I don't know the story behind the nug, but most of it appears, it looks a lot like greenhouse and outdoor from Northern California, Oregon, or Washington. It looks like, a lot of outdoor Oregon weed looks like kind of what I see in the. Not saying that they got weed from any of those states at all. I'm just saying it looks like that. Okay. I don't know the story behind that. Like I said, I have no idea what people are doing. But, I see weed all over the world, and I'm almost like a geolocated for ganja, bro. I can tell you where it's grown almost a lot. Maybe not completely 100% accurate, but man, I got the skills on that one. There's been some great indoor weed we've seen here. You can tell when it hasn't been processed heavily, like stuck into a bag or a vacuum seal bag or rolled into a box or something like that. And when the crystals are still on it and the hairs still stick out, like you still, it's not crushed or trampled or packaged in any way. That's how you got, local indoor or outdoor, but that's hard to get. We've seen some locally grown OKC bud. We're smoking it right now. Some of it's really good. I'll tell you, it's more humid down here, so there's a higher terpene profile that you smell, the same nugget that maybe would be in Colorado or the plains of Oregon because it's so dry in those places. So yes, I'm saying the weed is very fragrant here because of that humidity. It's one of the problems that plagues Colorado is it's so dry. It's hard to get that initial nose that comes off a sack of fine cannabis. You have to dig into it a little bit. I'll tell you the other thing is the nuggets just don't powder the same way like they do in Colorado. Like you got to use a grinder, and I just find that makes for superior cannabis product when it just has that little bit more moisture in it. Now, Coloradonians would disagree and be like, your weed's wet, you're selling wet weight. But, just a little bit more moisture in it. I prefer it. Other people do too. Not a lot, just that right amount. I'm not sure what that is, but and you get that here because it's so humid. We're basically in the South, man. A lot of people say Oklahoma City. I say Oklahoma, and they're like, oh, you're in the plains, a big dust bowl. It's like, yeah, that was like fucking 100 years ago, asshole. Like, oh, what are you living in a teepee? And I was like, what a fucking jackass, We've heard all that stuff. But, man, Oklahoma City, it starts to, like, west of Oklahoma City, it is plains. It's high plains, just like southern Colorado. East of Oklahoma City starts to get rolling hills, trees, some small mountain ranges, water, river, ponds. You get all of it, man. Lots of water over here. And man, that's one of the things that really draws me to it is there's lots of water here. Speaking of water, the water quality is not the greatest. Most places I have tested it within and around the city, the parts per million have been upwards of 400. The pH is 750. Definitely RO filters are probably recommended if you're growing here. If you're having problems with your crop, get an RO filter. Man, the other awesome thing about Oklahoma City is everybody's talking about organic. Now they're using this term that's a marketing term from Elaine Ingram and maybe some other people. It's like living soil. And I know it's like it's this great magic and it just sounds great, but man, it's really, we're just talking about organically grown weed, organic inputs, mostly grown with water. Now there's all kinds of labs and PFA and subcultures of living soil, compost tea, and it is, man, high topic of conversation here, where like Colorado, people don't talk about it so much. In certain pockets and segments, people do, but in general, Colorado is not an organic state. It is mostly a hydro state. I sell tons of rock wool in Colorado, tons and tons of rock wool. Even though people perceive it to be organic, cannabis is not an organic product unless it has organic inputs. That means it's, grown with products that we perceive to be organic. And that's why the popularity of living soil has grown so much here, is people want, organic product. This living soil, they believe in the magic of it all. And there is a little bit of magic to it. There's a lot of magic to it. There's a lot of magic to it. It is absolutely one of the biggest topics of conversation, and I love it, man. I'm 25-year vegetarian. I try to only eat organic food, smoke organic weed. Doesn't happen all the time, but I try, and that's what I want to do. Hands down, some of the best weed I've ever had has been, organic outdoor. Best weed in the world. I'll give it to you right now. Northern California, Southern Oregon, organic, full sun, outdoor. It cannot be beat for flavor. Oh my God. Unless you're talking about maybe some properly grown, proper light depth from those same regions. You just cannot beat the flavor of that organic water only product. It's just incredible. And of course, I've also seen the flip side of that, and many people's organic, especially when they go inside or living soil inside, the plants just don't digest the nutrients the same. And outside or in greenhouses, they can really do it well, and it's really effective. Indoors, they don't quite digest the nutrients the same, and you often see it in the flush of the cannabis. People like really go through all the trouble of having their, organic inputs, and they've got their labs, and they're trading labs with their buddies and compost tea and sprinkling whatever kind of magic on it. But then they have to pump so much nutrient in it through these organic methods that the plant still doesn't uptake all the nutrition, and it's hard to flush. And, truth of the matter, getting organic buds to yield indoors, you need larger containers and larger veg time. And there's your secret to growing organic indoors, is larger containers and larger veg times. But when you get larger containers and larger veg times, it's also harder to flush that product out. So you can get that weight with organic indoors, those larger containers, no problem. Maybe problems, but you can do it. It's hard to flush, man. You get those big 10, 20 gallon containers, man, it's just hard to flush. And it will ash hard and chunky and black, even though it's 100% organic product. So time and place for it, technique for it. Absolutely, organic can be grown inside. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying some of the problems with what's going on with many people's gardens, because I get to see a lot of weed. I go to growers that they don't look at anybody else's weed, and they grow tons of weed, man. But like they can't get their head out of their own garden, so to speak. And I get to go see everybody's weed. So, I'm like, oh, that guy does it great. That guy does it okay. That guy does it awful. Oh, they're all growing the same strains. What is that guy doing? And I get to see the best technique. And I'm not a snob at all. Well, wait a second. I'm a total weed snob, but I'm not arrogant about it. If somebody's got the good shit, I don't care if it's grown hydro, then I'll give it up to them, man. And I love hydro, by the way. Love it. Love it. Love it. Man, I also love, full sun organic outdoor, All right, I've got Darryl and Chris here from Cultivate OKC. We're putting up our new grow store here, Cultivate, on What's the address here? I don't even know it yet.
It's in Meridian.
10th and Meridian, Northwest 10th Street, Meridian. We're just building it out right now. It's full of pallets and drywall dust, and we're just getting it all going. But as I promised, I'm going to give you guys out there a special treat. I'm going to have Darryl and Chris, who have both seen hundreds and hundreds of successful grow rooms, give a little secret of success. So we were talking about this earlier, guys. What's the most weight we've really seen out of a grow room, Darryl?
I'd say in the high 3-pound area per light, per 1,000 watts.
We've seen higher, but that's like an attainable regular goal.
I think that's an obtainable goal. I've heard higher, but I've never seen it myself. But the high 3s is reachable, and I think anywhere in the mid 2s to high 2s for a commercial grower on a large scale is obtainable and should be done if you want to be successful.
Now, Chris has just come here from California to start this Cultivate OKC. What do you think about that? What's the kind of highest or standard weight you see in indoor grow rooms, Chris?
I tend to agree with the high 3s being what I've heard of. Personally, have not seen, but I've definitely seen 3-pound to light gardens, and it's obtainable. I think a lot of people are probably in the lower 2s working towards that.
Growing weed is kind of like fishing. Is the biggest fish you catch that day or that year, that's the fish you catch all the time. And this isn't hard. I mean, at 2.5 ounces a square foot, and if you have a 1,000 watt light with 25 square feet, I mean, you're pushing 3.9 pounds at 2.5 ounces a square foot. And like when you say it that way, it doesn't seem like it's that hard, right?
With the right technique, I think it can be done, definitely.
If you have enough plants per light, you have a pretty easy chance of hitting those numbers.
Or enough colas. We were talking earlier, and the legal amount for a home grower here in Oklahoma and in Colorado and many states is 6 plants. And, I was speaking to Darryl how it was hard to get that 3-pound light with 6 plants. And he had a scenario where this was possible and regular. Could you explain this to me, Darryl?
I mean, you got to have everything dialed in, your temperature, your humidity, and also CO2. And that's the foundation or the start of it all. And from there, genetics play an important role of the numbers that you'll be able to hit.
When you mean your environment dialed in, it pretty much has to be HVAC. We're talking heating and air.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. People like to do it on the cheap, but it takes money. You got to have the right environment.
So how do you do it with just 6 plants?
Me personally, I top them early. I make sure that there would be
Let's start it out at the very beginning. You got a clone. How's a clone come out?
Comes out healthy. Healthy with white roots. It's a survival of the fittest. So you take more than you need, and then you get rid of the losers, and you keep the winners. That's how you start off.
And then you take your clone, whether it's a Rockwool or whether it's an Aero cloner, and you transplant it into what size container?
I would say from a clone to a 3.5, and then from a 3.5 to a 1 gallon. I personally go up to a 7 gallon. Lots of other people do it different ways.
When do you start topping? You put it into that 3.5, and when does the topping start?
I top after I see 4 nodes.
And so that might be in the 4-inch, in the 3.5-inch, or is it in the 1 gallon?
It's usually in the 3.5.
Right, so you top it at 3.5, you transplant it into a 1 gallon. Darryl, we had grown in a 3.5 or 4-inch pot for some small period of time, like a week or 10 days. We top it and then put it in a 1 gallon pot. How much longer do you grow it after that?
I veg it for a while.
In the 1 gal?
In the 1 gal, yep. I would say a month, sometimes more. I don't do it for a living like some of these other people do, so I'm limited on space. And
we're just talking six plants under how many watts?
Under 3,630 watts.
A very small environmental impact, very small electricity bill.
This is a home grow.
So you veg it in the 1 gallon, and then you transplant it into a 7 gallon.
Put it into a 7 gallon, veg it a little bit more there, and then when the plants usually reach about, I would say, belly height, or waist high, that's when I flip them.
Do you have more than just the initial topping where you topped it when it was in the 3.5-inch container?
I do some pre-staking and some lower growth throughout veg to help make the plant as symmetrical and as wide as possible. When you're growing only a few plants, you got to make the most out of the square footage you got. So if you're not topping and training the plant, it's really not going to fill out or give you as much colas as you need if you're trying to actually hit decent numbers.
What kind of soil and nutrients are you using, or you suggest people to use?
Currently, I'm using growers soil right now.
They're soilless mix.
Yeah, they're HP mix. It's a peat, perlite, and cocoa blend. And then I use Canna nutrients with a couple different additives.
Some secret ingredients? Are you going to be able to divulge those to us today?
Nothing secret about what I do. Pretty much follow the recipe. I add CalMag in there. Doesn't matter what brand. Personally, I use the GH Cali Magic. And then early on throughout veg, I also use some sort of silicic acid, whether it be Facilitor or silicium.
So let's just get this straight. You root it, you put it in a 3.5-inch pot of grower soil, soilless. You use Canna nutrients. You top it when it's 10 inches tall. You put it in a 1-gallon container of grower's soil and continue to use Canna. You veg it for about a month. How tall does it get then?
In the veg period?
And in that 1-gallon pot.
In that 1-gallon pot, it's probably up to my mid-thigh, I guess.
Darryl puts his hand out like you can see it.
Yeah, no, to about mid-thigh, I would say that's like, 2.5, 3 feet, something like that.
Then you transplant it into the 7-gal that also has the grower soilless blend in it. You're continuing using Canna, right? And you veg it for another
couple weeks. Honestly, I don't adhere.
These plants are big.
Yeah, I don't adhere to a time schedule. It's more about when the plants are ready. Because if you try to rush it, you're going to sacrifice yield for it. If you're going to be patient and wait the extra week or two, it's going to pay off for you. And the same is true for when you cut it down. Just wait till it's actually finished.
Yeah, and that's takes just a little bit of technique, but don't just say it's done at 56 days or 64 days. Like, really look at the plant and make your own judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you grow the same strain over and over again, you learn it better. You get better quality, better yields. It's like anything. The more you practice it, the better you get.
What kind of lights?
Personally, I've got Gavita 750s, and then I have DLI 315s. 2 double-endeds on each side, and down the center of it, I do the 315s.
All right. Well, thanks, Darryl, for that enlightening information and secrets to how to pull a big weight on just 6 legal plants. And that was Darryl Souza from Cultivate, Colorado, telling us how to max out 6 plants. And many states around the country have 6-plant legal limits. So does Oklahoma. So if you're interested more about how to pull over a pound a plant on 6 plants with just 3,600 watts, stop into Cultivate, Oklahoma. Cultivate OKC, that's on Northwest 10th Street in Meridian. We're open almost every day for many hours of the day randomly. There's more than one way to do it, though. We see tons of people growing different ways, a million ways to do it. And Chris, the manager here at OKC, he's got an alternative method for you. So, Chris, what's another secret to success on how to build a garden that'll produce quality cannabis and yield?
If plant count is not an issue, I would run basically a plant per square foot, and I would veg the plants out to about a foot tall, and then I would initiate flowering. That probably would take about maybe 10, 12 days of veg, and then I would switch the light cycle to 12-12 and begin flowering. When I initiate flowering, I would go back and I would clean up the bottom third of the plant, remove all the branches, nodes, clean that part up, stake them, or use trellis netting. Just basically try and keep the canopy as even as possible and control lateral growth and just shape the plant depending on what strain you're growing. It takes practice to know how to prune the plant, but just you could basically go for 1 to 2 tops of plant and easily pull 3-pound yield.
Easily. So this is my favorite sea of green plantlet method. The really key to this is getting those numbers of clones, right? And you're talking 1 plant per square foot. That's 25 plants basically per light. And the secret is to really have a bunch of healthy clones. How do you go about like organizing that phase, the very beginning phase of getting your clones and your early veg?
It's good to have more clones than you need when you start. That way you can call the weak ones. I would say up potting, starting with, I like to go into 5-inch pots from the cutting and veg them in those typically for the first 2 weeks. That's where most of my veg activity occurs. And then I transplant into 3-gallon pots, usually wait a few days and then initiate flowering.
Now, the importance of using the 5-inch pot. Many people try to skip this first transplant, but the importance of it is so you can do exactly what Chris said, is what cull the weak plants. It also consolidates your vegetative area so that you can have more plants in a smaller area, and you can keep all of your flowering lights in flower power. How tall are these plants in I want to get some real good specifics for our listeners here. How tall are these plants in 5-inch pots before they go into the 3-gallon pot?
I usually let them get to be about 10 inches tall before transplanting and then wait a few days until they grow a little bit taller. Usually I'll see roots already coming through the bottom of the pot, the larger 3-gallon pot by that point, because the root mass is fairly well established in the 5-inch pot.
Yeah, that's an important factor there. If you see the roots when you see the roots coming out the bottom of that 5-inch pot, that's about the right time to start thinking about transplanting up into your 3-gallon pot.
And from that point, I don't like to veg that long in the 3-gallon pots because I don't want them to get root bound immediately. I don't want to get root bound while I'm still trying to get the plants ready to flower. And that way they have plenty of room for the next 8 weeks to 9 weeks in their 3-gallon home.
Right. Yeah. In my opinion, the perfect scenario is to get whatever container you're flowering in, a 2-gallon, a 3-gallon, a 7-gallon, a 10-gallon, a 20-gallon, is after that first 2 or 3 weeks of flower, the roots have pretty much grown most of what they're going to do. They'll continue growing. But at that point, that's when you really want the container heavily rooted, not root bound necessarily, but heavily rooted. Do you agree with that?
I do. I don't like to veg entirely in the pot that they're going to stay in and through the flowering process. I like to move them into different size pots.
Yeah. And do you promote fabric pots, geopots, hard pots? What do you think, Chris?
Geopots. I think they're the best quality fabric pot on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Geopots are great. Fabric pots are great. A little bit hard to transplant in. But hey, I'll give a little transplant secret. If you've got you already know this one, Chris. If you've got a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon or a 10-gallon or whatever geopot or fabric pot, you take a correlating plastic pot of 3 gallons, 5 gallons, 10 gallons. You cut the bottom off with a hacksaw so it's open-ended. You place it inside your geopot. You dump the soil in, or soilless medium in, and then you pull out the plastic liner.
It's nice. I've done that on a larger scale, but I've never done it with the smaller ones.
Yeah, it works best with the smaller ones, really.
Great trick.
Oh, yeah, pass that Dutchie over this way, Chris. That's right. Oh, man, we're always trying to learn here at Cultivate Colorado, but we see so many people come in with different growing methods. And now that we're down into Oklahoma, we see so many different types of growing methods that people have started. Many of them involved LEDs and vertical gardens. You care to make a comment on that, Chris?
Oh, vertical gardening? It made me think of how much more efficient Darryl's method of doing 6 plants is versus some of the older methods like the crusty bucket method, surrounding plants basically with vertically hung light bulbs.
dangerous. They should call that burn your ass method, not crusty bucket, or your skin looks crusty because you burn yourself so much.
I've seen it work well, but the veg time is a lot longer than what Darryl was describing.
Yeah, veg time's where everybody loses it. That's for sure. And I know Darryl yesterday was like, I don't care about veg. I don't care about veg, but it's one of the most important things to me and to any grower because it costs twice as much to veg in days and in power. It costs more money to veg than it does to flower. So if you're vegging for 6 weeks, you might be in trouble.
I think also the lighting that he was describing using, the 315 LECs, that's going to blow away almost any LED.
Totally, man. I mean, the 315 really is the most superior grow light right now.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that. It looks like something like the kind of light you'd see down near the equator or something.
It's right. It has a perfect spectrum. You can change the bulbs out easy. There's the 4200 and a 3200 Kelvin bulb. One's for flower, one's for veg. Many people like to mix the spectrums. I believe Darryl's garden, it was a 650, 750 Flex, which is a double-ended bulb, double-ended product. Gavita and Phantom, they both make this product. ePapillon makes this product. And then he combines it with an additional 315 next to it.
I'm kind of amazed you can get that kind of yield off of such little wattage. So very impressive.
And it's all that canopy. It's just making sure your canopy is full. That's what we're talking about here at Square Foot Gardening. And you came in it really easily of one plant per square foot in a 2 or 3 gallon pot. And what Darryl was doing is he was counting colas per square foot instead of plants per square foot to get his weight or his yield.
I mean, I've also had a lot of success running higher plant count per square foot, like 4 plants per square foot, and flipping them even smaller. I mean, it's all how many plants do you want to manage and how big is your veg. And
if it's hydro, those smaller plantlets work way better. That's for sure.
And I think in scenarios like that, I would be running rockwool. It's just easier to manage. You can grow a large plant in a 4x4 block. You can cram quite a few of them in. You can stack them on larger blocks.
You can throw them away and replace them easily.
Uh-huh.
You can flood and drain them. You can drip them. You can hand water them.
You can definitely get great yields off of even more plants per square foot with smaller canopy in probably a quicker amount of time. You'd be spending more on supplies, but quicker return on your flip.
Absolutely. And, I love all things indoor, outdoor, light depth greenhouse growing, but I really do love flood and drain, hydroponic style growing, whether it's cocoa or with rock wool. The plants just start to develop this root system where they just really suck up the water and they just crave those multiple waterings. But the secret to that really is having more plants than you need, recognizing when there's some that don't take to it. And after that second week of flower, throw out all the ones that haven't responded, replace them, right? Have a nice even canopy. And that's really what makes those high impact number Sea Green gardens work, is no hoop-de-doos in the canopy. Make sure you have extras. If you flower it and you've got some that don't respond to flowering, you throw those away and you put new ones in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't have passion projects. If the plant's not working out, get rid of it. It's best to start with a better plant.
The interesting thing you just mentioned is the passion project. Is growers like to grow and they'll see a sick plant or a re-veg plant and they want to take care of it. They want it to be this great thing. And then they do that and it becomes this false sense of accomplishment. It's like they spent 2 months on trying to get this plant together and they're looking nice and happy it is, but they should have just chopped it down, thrown it away and started all over.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely, in my early days of growing, definitely had my share of passion projects, and I don't do that anymore. It's best not to be emotionally attached to a plant. And
you're right. You can always grow another one, especially when they're clones, right?
Just make more than you need.
That's why stormtroopers are so great because, they're all clones. If some get eliminated, then you just kick them to the side. And there's the stormtrooper just like it right next door, right?
Right. Totally. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, Hey, Boba Fett did something good in the world, right? Good for the world of science fiction anyway. It's taught us about clones. So there's a million ways to do it. That's kind of the point. However, man, if you ditch the magic and just look at the math, the plants per square foot, the nutrients, the way the plant grows, the simple growth strategy and growth habits of the plant. If you can dominate that, if you know how that works, then that's how you're going to get the highest quality and the highest yield garden. All right, Chris. So, hey, we're now open here, or almost open here in Oklahoma, OKC. Is there anything you want to say to the Oklahomians and other people in the surrounding states that might be coming to visit us here?
Yeah, definitely come on down. We're going to have some tip sheets on different methods of growing to help you with different types of methods, whether it be hydroponics or organics. We will have basically a formula for success.
There you go. Direct instructions, not just necessarily theory. We're going to give you like ways to succeed. There's lots of magic in the cannabis industry, and there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there. But what we really want to see is we want to see this plant propagate. We want to cultivate ourselves while we're doing it. And man, we want to see a ton of great weed. So come down, chat with us, and we'll help you maximize your system and help you build your grow room the best way we can. Thanks for taking the time out of this sweaty day, Chris. I guess we're going to go load some more pallets up, huh?
Yeah, thanks for letting me come inside the nice air-conditioned building.
Yeah, that's right. Get back out there. Get back out in the heat.